Hey everybody, Mr. Regan here. And up to now, you've been exploring the different limbs of our three species, the wolf, the bat, and the Titanotilapus, in order to figure out how their shared structures has led us to believe that they have common ancestors. Now, we know that each of these species shares the one to many bone structure, but when we look at these shared limb structures, we see that there are a lot of differences even with those similarities. So we're going to be looking to figure out, well, how is that possible? How can these species with these shared structures have changed and evolved over time, knowing they have a common ancestor? And to do that, we're going to be looking to collect some environmental evidence using our sorting cards that we've looked at in previous lessons, and using that evidence on the next set of tasks to help us begin thinking about, well, how is it that these different structures from these different species help us figure out that they have a common ancestor. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we're going to do that. So, our three species here are going to help us figure out this idea of evolution of their shared structures. And up to now, we've begun examining their front limbs, and we've been looking at their legs, their wings, and obviously the legs of that species. As we've examined these shared structures, we were going to use their observations to help us understand how does an ancestor population evolve into the descent species. So if these are a descent species, how do they have a shared common ancestor? So as you observed some of the similarities and differences in these shared structures, you hopefully begin to notice that these limb bones of these species are used for specific things. Each limb's unique shape, structure, size, position can be considered a trait. Just like a species' color, teeth, fur, and abilities are all traits as well. The different structures we see can be considered adaptive traits depending on the environment that they live in. Hopefully, that term sounds familiar. We learned a while ago about adaptive traits when we study natural selection. And we know an adaptive trait helps an organism survive and reproduce in its unique environment. So, for example, each one of these birds has a unique beak, even though they have different structures. They're each adaptive for the different food that they find in the environment, whether it's the big beak for the strong walnuts or the pointy beak to get inside of the cactus. Each one has its different uh, purpose for its different environment. Now, because these are all adaptive, because these traits are for adaptive for each of their environments, we know that they become common in the species population over time because they're able to live longer and reproduce. So these types of birds are able to live longer because they can eat the specific food in their environment. So, to help us think about the reason why the bone structures are shaped the way they are for our three species, we're going to use our species slides from that earlier unit to gather information about their environment, just like the environment of our birds. The more we know about how and where the species live, the more we can understand how a shared structure can evolve over time. So, we've looked at this idea that we're going to be collecting environmental evidence using the sorting cards, and we're going to be using them in the next set of tasks. So, the next set of tasks is going to have us collecting evidence about each of their environments: the wolf, the bat, and our ancient camel. Once we've collected that evidence, we're going to be looking at how their structure and shape of their limb would lead them to be an adaptive trait for their environment. So, first, we got to collect that environmental evidence. So, what you're going to do is you're going to go into our sorting cards and you're going to look for our three species: the dire wolf, the fruit bat, and the Titanotilapus. And each one is going to have evidence in its paragraph that tells you about what their environment had, what it was like, and what they needed to do to survive in their environment. Each one unique to help us understand why their legs are structured the way they are. So you're going to collect evidence from the text and you're going to use that evidence to help you answer these questions in task 6. Once you've collected your evidence, you're going to think about why those limbs are adaptive for their environment and answer each question about each of our three species. So that's how we're going to be collecting evidence for our slides and how we're going to use that evidence in the next set of tasks. If you have questions, reach out, or if you want to look at the slide, go ahead and hit the help button. Otherwise, good luck.